and welcome to another excellent episode of Faith and Whatever. We haven't seen you guys in a while, and we've been working on some killer stuff over at F&W Games Club. So if you're interested in that, check it out. If not, welcome to the place where all the real discussions take place.
New format?
Yeah. So if you're listening to us on
Don't turn in your chair.
iTunes, thank you for continuing to support the best way to get Faith and Whatever, and that is audio only because you don't have to see us. But if you're watching us on...
Garrett is so disgusting looking.
If you're watching us on YouTube right now, it's good to see you guys again. And we've been dropping different kinds of videos on YouTube. But one of the things that I think people might be missing, if they want it, is to be able to watch what happens when we create magic at Faith and Whatever.
Whole lot of this.
Oh, yeah.
So, but if you're listening to it on iTunes, you're not missing anything at all. This is really terrible, actually. But
they don't know what I'm doing right now.
Yep, they don't know that you're taking off. Never mind. Okay. So today I want to talk about a couple different things. A lot of stuff's been happening in the news, and a lot of things have been just engaging the minds of your Faith and Whatever hosts. But one of the things that I've been thinking a lot about and wanting to do a podcast on for the last couple of weeks is climate change.
Yeah, this podcast is changing a lot. The climate in this room.
It's not so hot anymore. At least it's not like a sauna in here. So climate change has been kind of in the news, but not really. But one of the things that's been sparking some discussion on climate change has been kind of our hurricane season that we've had recently, and a lot of devastating storms, even some fairly extreme weather all across the country. It seems like every week or so there's some natural disaster. I mean, I guess you can't call it an earthquake climate change, but somebody would. There's just things happening that seems to be more extreme. And one of the things
extreme weather comes and goes too. We go through cycles, right? I mean, I definitely am a believer in climate change. I think
man-made.
No, I think that.
Whoa! Slow down.
Whoa. I think
we'll get there.
I think a very important issue, which is climate change, gets muddied by man-created politics.
Correct.
Unfortunately, I think climate change has been a tool of the Democrats, and
I honest to God thought you were going to say tool of the devil. I was about to get up and walk out of this room.
No, I mean I think it's been a tool of the Democrats.
Fossils, now it's climate change.
I think they use it to their own political ends, and I lean left. I'm not talking about the party I'm opposed to. It's the party I'm most in line with for the most part. I disagree on some things. But I think Democrats use it as a tool for their agenda, and that muddies the waters. I think there really is a significant issue that is maybe not as forthcoming. The forthcoming problem, that the doomsday sort of reporting, where like we got 10 years left.
Were we supposed to all be underwater by now?
Yeah, we're all gonna be underwater. Have you seen the video that's going around? What the beach cities are gonna look like in 10 years? Like, well, that's a bit much.
That's one of my questions. Tell me why. Why is it used as a political tool, and how do we begin to separate that?
Everything is used as a political tool, right? And I feel like not because any of these politicians believe in it, but it's because it's almost like at any given time they're divvying up things that they can. And so it's like, oh, well, the Republicans already jumped on this issue and are going to use it for their purposes, so we're going to jump on this like opposing issue. And they just sort of somehow naturally divvy things up amongst each other. And the Democrats landed on climate, right?
Okay, but how is it used to their advantage?
Because what they do is they
we care about the environment. We believe in climate change, so vote
and
for
we're going to do things in the Senate and in the House and with lawmaking that will address those issues. So the more we make you afraid of those issues, the more you'll want to vote for us who will fix them, right? And Republicans do the same thing. Both parties in America do the same thing. Republicans will take on some social issue, whether it be like abortion or homosexuality or something like that, and they'll say, and the people that they are trying to attract their votes, they will scare them on those issues as much as possible, and then they'll say, and we're going to fix this thing when you elect us. So that's unfortunately what happens. Everything in America, it all gets muddied by our really poor political system right now. Right. Not poor in design, but poor in our treatment of it. I think we have a good design. It's just we can't all use it well right now for some reason.
So that's kind of at the core of the issue. And the question I have today is it seems like even Christianity has to pick sides when it comes to these social and political issues.
Right.
And one of the things that doesn't happen often, but it's like, especially on social media and Facebook, is it's like all your right-leaning Bible-believing Christians are anti-climate change.
Well, yeah, it is Christian. It's two kinds. It's the what do you call it? The tale of two Christianities, though. It's the evangelical and the evangelical like churches, the conservative, sometimes fundamentalist churches, versus the mainline churches, who are always the opposite politically of those groups. So like the mainline churches are all about ecology, right? We're doing ecological theology in mainline churches. They're all about creation saving. They're all about social justice. They're all about the things that left-leaning politics tend to be about.
I guess they're just not very good at social media.
Well, some are.
They don't make a lot of noise. They
Some-
don't get
do.
involved in heated debates with anyone else. They're just too accepting.
I don't know. I mean, I think it depends on what social circles you're surrounding yourself in. I would say that right now Fox News has a strong social voice, and so the politics that Fox News gets itself involved in also is very loud. But I would say that I've maybe because of the circles I've been part of, I hear the mainline side of things a lot too. But it just depends on like, you know, it all has a lot to do with who your friends and family on Facebook.
But I think that's kind of the issue, right? So I'm a card carrying independent, and you know I think the issue.
Are they gonna say psychopath?
I know.
Correct.
The issue is that it's hard for you to navigate kind of Christian beliefs and Christian social identities without like offending someone or someone going, "Whoa, you believe that?" So like recently in the hurricanes, whenever like a conversation comes up about hurricanes, like you know they say that weather's going to get more extreme, and like I have family members go, "Oh my gosh, you believe in climate change?" And I'm like, "What?
Yes.
What? You don't believe in climate change?" And they're not sure if they believe in climate change because they're not sure what their party says, and or they don't know if we're talking about man-made climate change or if we're just talking about our climate. Like,
yeah, I mean it's both. By the way, the climate change. If you took man off the map of the Earth, climate change would already be happening. The world goes through major cycles of heating and cooling.
what I'm telling you is some people don't believe that.
Right. I mean, we have on historical record that we had a deep freeze around the time of the millennium, going from the 900s into the 1000s. We experienced Europe experienced a deep freeze, and that's on record.
Here's some climate change facts. Ready?
Okay.
To talk about whether or not climate is changing, and regardless of human activity. 8 inches rise in global sea levels over the last century, and the rate of rise has nearly doubled in the last 2 decades, which I guess a climate denier could call me an idiot and want to know where these facts come from, but they come from the internet, so shut up.
They come from Twitter.
Number of record-breaking hottest years since 2000, 16. So what is it, 2017 right now? So 16 of the past 17 years were the hottest on record. The worldwide average increase in temperature is 1.5 degrees, and 9 of the most explosive fires in Americans' history have all occurred since 2000. And 2015 was the most number of acres ever burned by fire in recorded human history.
Yeah, put it this way: can't anybody at least imagine in their head that the power of humanity as a numerous force? I mean, think about smog. If you look at photos of Los Angeles, where we are all locals of the greater Los Angeles County, right?
Nope, Orange County for life.
You know what I mean? I mean, most people know Los Angeles. They may not know Orange County.
The Los
right?
Angeles Angels.
Orange County runs right up against Los Angeles. But if you look at photos from the 1960s and 70s of Los Angeles, the fog cloud is visible, palpable. Smog.
The smog.
It's a greenish gray. It's really disgusting looking, and that forced California to implement, because this was happening in many of their cities, but LA is one where we live, to implement smog regulation for cars. And since then, there has been a great clearing. That has been.
Isn't that your
There's a given a
family
great-
member that ruined that for everyone?
I don't know. You know what? Corporate and environment seem to be at odds, which is a great.
Yeah. So, and if you want to know, what that looks like, what LA once looked like, you can look at like current photos of Mexico City, where there isn't smog regulation, where what was true of LA in the 70s is now true of Mexico City, and it is a disgusting pollutant air. That's just the effect we have because there's in major metropolitan areas, there's millions of us. And when you have millions of anything, it has an effect upon at least the local area. And then when you're thinking about 7 billion of us across the globe.
You have several millions of something across the globe.
Right. So we have 7 billion of us across the globe. Then we have a global effect. Not one that's not unfixable. I don't know if it's curable, but we can certainly do better. And I think I would say moderately minded climate change people concerned with climate change, but we're trying not to be political about it. That's what we want. We just want to do better.
Sure.
Right. And make sure that our permanent effect upon the earth is not a bad one.
Well, and this is my curiosity, because if you think about the last 120 years when we switched from advanced agrarian to an industrial society, it's really been in these last 50 years that we have been developing tools to measure the impact that we've been having, because we've been thinking about it now. So right in the first 50 years of the Industrial Revolution that occurred in the West, both Europe and America, the idea was, okay, industrialize as fast as you can, make as much as you can, produce there. And then it's been the back where we've kind of gone, I wonder what impact we're having on the world at large. So of course we're just coming to recognize some of the scenarios that we find ourselves in. So it doesn't strike me as it being difficult to recognize the idea that we've been producing goods and things at a rate we've never seen before in human history. Surely we're going to have some unforeseen impact on the earth that we've never experienced before, because we're doing things that the earth has never experienced before.
Yeah.
And I mean, it just stands to reason that
every
that's gonna
10
be a
years we're
natural
advancing to a new human state that's not been experienced before in humanity or on this earth. Every 10 years.
And so we have to deal with those consequences in some way. Now, we don't have to overly politicize things. I think you're right. I think the basic tenet can be, if you can take steps to reduce your carbon footprint, do that. If you can get a better fuel-efficient car, if you can drive less, if you can carpool, if everybody just does simple things, it doesn't have to be this left or right issue. But particularly as Christians,
I agree.
Your theology of ecology becomes
and that's my question for today. As Christians, one, I mean, I feel like many times we should avoid politicizing something and really look at it from a biblical standpoint and kind of clear away party lines and party opinions, because that's not God's opinion necessarily.
Right.
So my question is as Christians, especially two smart people who've studied the Bible sitting in front of me, if we could have a unified Christian perspective on climate change, regardless of how deeply you feel humans have impacted and changed the climate, what would that be? What would God
let me answer
say
it this
about
way.
climate change?
We should always be concerned for the climate because we're supposed to be shepherds over God's creation.
It's like the very first thing that we're commanded to do.
Right.
As humanity.
Genesis 2. We're supposed to be concerned, have dominion over. People misunderstand what dominion is. When it says that like men will have dominion over the earth, dominion is meaning it is your sphere of responsibility. That's what dominion is. A king, the dominion of a king is a kingdom, but that means that's the sphere of that king's responsibility. And so we're supposed to have dominion over
not
all
their
of
possession
creation.
to just take and do whatever they want.
Right. That means that we have responsibility. We have a vocation over. And so, we should be. If any scientists say that God's creation is we're having a negative effect, the first response of Christians should be concern to see if that's true, concern to do better, because we're supposed to be concerned with God's creation.
So instead of calling out their credibility as a scientist,
right?
It seems to be so.
I'm not necessarily opposed to skepticism in and of itself. I think there's one thing that we've always learned is the idea of like following where the money leads, right? And so I think doing that can help you understand that maybe things aren't as bad as people are saying they are. Maybe they are worse. Whatever the truth ends up being, right? There, but regardless of that, I think James holds the point holds water ultimately, that if somebody says there could be an issue, that should cause you to reflect internally and saying, what can I do to be better about that?
Right.
Maybe things aren't as bad as the scientists say they are. Who knows? It doesn't matter, right? That it shouldn't be a matter of like good or terrible or bad, right?
Okay.
If you're going to have a theology of ecology, it should be, what's the best reaction I can have to this news?
Right.
And if that can cause me to, for example, like I don't get plastic bags when I go to the store anymore, partly because we outlawed them and partly because I'm cheap and I don't want to pay for them. But I have noticed that has reduced my personal wastefulness, right?
Sure.
Like when I used to just put the bread in its own bag and then put the milk in its own bag.
Yeah.
Right? Like now, I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to hold it. And then I want to see how many bags I can carry up the stairs there. But I mean, it's small things like that that has made me more aware of my lifestyle there and of my wastefulness there. And so I don't see why our natural reaction wouldn't be to turn inward and figure out how we can be better.
I'll tell you where some confusion does come. All right, let's admit things where they stem. Is that there is cultures within Christianity. There are Christian cultures, Christian groupthinks where they view the world as a bad thing and that God is ultimately going to throw it away. I would say that is not biblical, except for the fact that the Gospel of John and some of the Johannine literature uses the word world and in comparison to darkness and bad things.
Right.
But I think somebody who studies the whole biblical text will see that God has a great love for creation, and that creation is in its nature good, right? Even if it's affected by sin. And I think when the Gospel of John uses the word world, it's using it figuratively for its theological aims. It's not really trying to tell you about the world itself so much as maybe the nature of humans, the nature of corporate humans maybe. I think that's what the Gospel of John and the Johannine literature means by world. But it does use that word kind of loosely. Right. So there is like a biblical precedent for it to almost be to disregard the world as a negative thing because of that particular literature in the Bible. But this is where we got to make sure we have a full biblical outlook, that what's happened in the full biblical text, God loves the world. It is his creation. It is something that he gives to man for us to take care of it. And we have a responsibility to take care of God's creation. God is not going to disregard the world. If you take people read Book of Revelation many different ways, but let's just assume it talks about the future, which is not particularly my position, but let's just say it does. Says that God's going to recreate the world and bring it to a fuller self. It's going to make a new heaven and new earth. And so God is not anti-world. He's not anti the planet. He's not anti-ecology. God is all about these things, and he wants us to be all about it as well. Yeah.
But I think we would both have people in our life, maybe conservative Christians who we respect, have kind of the opposite views of this, that like we can do whatever we want with the planet because it's God gave it to us, and those are our resources to own and to exploit, and man is best, and man is most important, and if that means that to power my vehicles I have to make an animal extinct, well, animals aren't as important as people, and I need my car to get to work and have my family, and so be it. So an animal is going to go extinct. It's just an animal.
But at the root of that basic idea, I mean, we can talk about nuances, but at the root of that basic idea is materialism and narcissism, which are not biblical.
Sure.
Materialism is not biblical. There's no way you can defend materialism as being biblical. Materialism in the sense of wanting to amass material things, right? And building material wealth for yourself. And then narcissism meaning an all about you perspective, right? Even if you is your people. The Bible constantly points to believers needing to think outside themselves, and even groups of believers, like the people of God, thinking outside of themselves, and also to disregard material consumption for the sake of, for the sake of shared good. So, I mean, I know what you're saying, but I'm also trying to contradict the people you're speaking for right now.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, we can move on in a related topic, but I think Christians need to have more conversations like this. And I think sometimes for me, I get nervous kind of having friends in both, I won't say parties, but both areas of the way they think and perspective on climate. It's like, gosh, I get shut down by people of certain perspective, and it's like, how do I just have this conversation about caring for what God's given us? I just don't think that we have that kind of conversation enough, and let people, especially those who really care about the environment, not be anti-family values or anti-Christianity because we care about the planet and we believe scientific fact. And I think that's one of the issues that happens is if you're pro-science and you're pro-science fact, then you must be anti-God.
We got 10 minutes.
So moving on to that kind of subject, thinking about climate change, the ways it affects our environment. Recently in kind of the world is we've had some really bad hurricanes, and one of them has struck the Caribbean area, and Puerto Rico has been in the news a lot because of the way that it was affected and kind of the attempt
and the rap battle that the Twitter beef
that's
been erupting.
The attempt to communicate what is and what isn't happening.
Somebody tried to communicate the way they see our president communicating, and the president did not like that form of communication.
Oh yeah. So Right, James? Why don't you fill us in a little bit about
Well, I
the
wanna say
mirror,
up front-
Trump's mirror held up to him?
Want to make sure people know this because I think there are a number of people who don't. Puerto Rico is not some other country. They are a territory of the United States. They're not a state, but they are under our federal control.
Yeah.
They have
They're
no
citizens.
And we have a
rights.
federal responsibility to them. The nuances of our legal responsibility to them, I will admit I don't know all those nuances. I don't know what it means to be a territory and not a state.
But in other words, they don't have
Means nothing good.
systems that other states would have to support them
Right.
in disasters and things like that.
Yeah. It does mean that we do owe them our concern because they are part of our federal country, right? And so, yeah, I don't know all the news, but apparently Puerto Rico has been slammed by the recent hurricane situations. It's been resulting in the complete toppling of infrastructure there. A lot of people dying just from needing certain kinds of care and not receiving it.
One of Trump's secretaries said that it was actually the news story of Puerto Rico was a good one because only 16 people had died.
Jeez.
It's just like, oh man, you totally botched that one, dude.
Only 16 guys, just 16. Those are good numbers, right? And so I guess the it's not the president of Puerto Rico. It would be
The mayor of San Juan.
The mayor of San Juan used Twitter to criticize the slowness of the federal arms of to sort of come to Puerto Rico and assist. And FEMA would probably be one of these, right? That they were criticizing. And President Trump responded on Twitter, basically calling out that mayor for. Basically calling them out for using Twitter in this way to criticize the federal
and saying
government.
she's a bad leader.
Yeah, she's a bad leader for it, which, as we talked about, Garrett, is hilarious.
Yeah.
Because, as in your own words, Garrett, that he made a career of that. That is exactly President Trump's political career up until this point, is to use Twitter to criticize federal government.
Yeah, I mean that's before he became president. It was that's his deal.
Barack Obama
I'm
going to
be the guy who uses Twitter.
He started the birther movement.
To probably using Twitter to make fun of the federal or to highlight areas of federal government where we can make America great again, you know. And then here's somebody who's doing the federal government's not really working to our best, and then Trump totally says, "Well, you're just a bad leader. You can't you don't know how to run your own city."
Chris, what do you think about this? I need to get you involved.
I think it was actually the Clinton campaign in 2008 that started the birther movement. If you go back.
Okay, that was not quite what I was after.
Just for
No,
within
that's
5
true,
minutes, we
that's
can
true.
talk about
You're
birther
right.
movement.
You're right. That's true. That's true.
I don't know. She does seem like a bad leader, but he's a bad leader too. So like I said before, they deserve each other. She admitted she hadn't met with federal officials, so she's criticizing what they're doing, but she doesn't actually know what they're doing.
So she's flexing social media muscles without doing the more difficult job of meeting with officials first.
The governor of Puerto Rico said that the federal government has been helpful and been great. So, yeah, whatever. I think it's a non-story. I think it's a great way to distract people while the Republicans slide their tax plan through.
See?
So what's this tax plan, Chris? What's the tax plan?
Corporate tax cuts,
Yes.
big tax cuts for lower and middle class. I heard one report saying first $25,000 of your income would be tax-free.
So
Which would
Chris,
be pretty awesome for a lot of people.
why would you suppose they'd have to slide that one? It seems like it's good news for so many people.
Because they botched everything else they've done. I mean, think about it. What have the Republicans passed since Trump got elected?
A couple of BMs, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's about it, right? They couldn't
Travel
remove
ban-
Obamacare.
some missed
Travel
some
ban
missed
briefly.
deadlines.
Yeah, the travel ban got overturned.
Briefly.
They haven't done anything. So
Yeah.
they're just trying to keep it on the down low. They're like, Trump, go on Twitter and stir something up.
As someone who studies communication, I kind of like Twitter and the idea of social media, but I was telling the guys earlier, maybe we should start a petition where Congress bans presidents from having personal Twitter accounts to just say whatever they want.
that's
They're on the
what South
toilet.
Park was about.
Because you can
recently.
imagine Trump before Trump, it's okay, let me ask my advisor of communication who has a Harvard degree in English and a PhD in communication and conflict resolution, how I should best communicate this to, I don't know, president of other worlds. But then here's President Trump, just taking a dump. Let me just respond real quick to the North Korean president
Taking a dump.
while he's on his phone. It just seems so.
I like the one with him hitting the golf ball that hits Hillary. Yeah, he tweeted that, and like people were freaking
I've
out.
seen that. That is so. That
They
is
said
like.
he was promoting violence against women, and like,
I mean,
everyone
that's not
was
true, but
losing
it
their
is.
crap.
It's like being a poor winner, though.
But
Like,
it was. But the great thing was that was like the same weekend that the Obamacare repeal died.
It just seems so.
But nobody was talking
unprofessional.
about that, were they?
no.
Just seems so unprofessional, and I get it. Like it seems like the president of the people should be able to have a Twitter and post his opinion, but it's just his. He doesn't. I wonder if he thinks sometimes before he posts these things. You know?
I don't think he does.
Yeah, I mean,
Well, I think he thinks about all of it. I think he may be smarter than anyone gives him credit for.
He's not playing 9D chess.
you
Yeah,
think
not
that
that-
this whole things are planned. His like,
Either that or somebody. I, mean,
I have
come on.
a different opinion than you.
who came up with Little Rocket Man? Was that Trump or like some super genius?
My
Like,
theory.
call him Little Rocket Man and see.
It stuck though, didn't it?
Yeah, my theory is Trump isn't thinking through all of this, but certain political powers
Yeah.
are letting him make a comical mess of himself while and attract the news to that.
Because it works.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess it works for some. I know that a lot of the supporters they don't defend him much anymore because how do you defend a barrage of ridiculous statements on Twitter? Like,
No, they don't care about that. What's stopping them from defending them is his 30% approval rating.
But I mean, think about it. This tax plan has one of the biggest corporate tax cuts like ever, and none of you guys had heard about it, right?
Right, exactly.
I mean,
I've been trying to watch the news. I
So
haven't seen
here-
anything definitive.
See,
Here it is. Current income tax rate, right? 10 to 15% if you make under 75,000 jointly.
That's nothing.
Under Trump's tax plan, you'd be down to 12, 25 to 28 if you're 37 to 112 or 75 to 225 jointly. You'd be cut from 25 to 15%. Or I'm sorry, 25% for income and then 15% for capital gains. And then you're at 28 to 39.6% if you are filing single if you make over 112 or over 225 jointly. And then on income, you'd go down to 35, and on cap gains, you'd go down to 20%. That's a
Does
pretty-
does
that's
anybody
pretty
go
big.
up in that plan?
There?
Well,
No,
I mean,
the whole
that's
point.
not how economy works, though.
No, but and that's
can't
that's
just
the issue
stop
with it.
taking
well,
money.
they do take
He's
away. They
proposing-
do take away some deductions, a number of deductions.
He's
Okay.
proposing an increase
No, it
in
doubles.
economical.
No, there
gains.
are deductions that are
The next
taken
10
away.
Oh,
years.
that go away.
Yeah.
The knock against it is says it adds 4.2 trillion to the debt in the long run, which slows the growth.
That's not what the Trump party is saying. They're saying that based
They're
on.
saying it's going to be a great plan, a beautiful plan.
Yeah.
So they're saying the cuts will attract more business because it will put our corporate tax rate on par with other countries.
and fixing some of the trade agreements will bring in additional funds, things like that. So somehow we started with climate change and ended
And
with
then the climate change on this podcast.
Yeah, no, but I think
Climate's never changed.
don't know
What
if
are you
they're-
talking about?
Oh, there it is.
yeah.
Well,
Well,
that's
so,
the dinosaurs.
one thing you learn is it's all about how you communicate it and what your perspective is and whether or not there's any truth in it. So on that fake news, thank you for listening to Faith and Whatever, and make sure you subscribe to us on iTunes and you're following us on Facebook and Instagram where we post sometimes. And thanks for tuning in.